I am live. Okay, so I have shot and edited and reshot and re-edited and had a lot of trouble with this last video. I realized that since I've been using the same basic like file to to edit all my videos, that probably it's been corrupted, and I need to like reset, start from zero, right? And so next time, all right, I'll do that. But for tonight, it's me and this frosty beverage and a lot of comics that I've obtained over the past winter. That's good stuff. So, what do we got? First of all, my good friend Mr. Fujita, uh, early or late last year, told me that he wanted to reduce his collection. He is focusing on his first issue collection, of which I'm still borrowing. He's still letting me borrow. I'm like, should I return some of this so that you can, keep it under lock and key? And he said, no, I trust you. And I'm like, it's close to a year. So anyway, I've got a couple more of the firsts, which I will get to over the next couple months. I have another manga history class starting up, so I'll be able to show a new generation of future manga artists some cool stuff. Show them where the art form, what it evolved from. So he tells me I have a bunch of stuff that I want to give you. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, I want you to have it because I know you're going to make good use of it. You're making these videos, you're sharing them with the world, and that's better than them, hiding on some collector's shelf, gathering dust. And I wasn't going to argue with the man. And he knows the kind of stuff that I'm into. So I'm just going to dig right in if y'all don't mind. So here we go. This is Shin Kyoji no Hoshi. This is a baseball comic. This is, like a special large size edition by Kajiwara Ikki and Kawasaki Naboro. This is the sequel to the original Kyoji no Hoshi, Star of the Giants. And I'm not a sports comics guy really, but because this particular artist, Kawasaki Naboro, there's two things that interest me about the guy. Of course, he was in, well, three things really, if you count. He was a kashihon artist, so he comes out of that tradition. He did a lot of westerns, including the famous one, Isamu, Boy of the Wilderness. And he lives in Kumamoto. He's not originally from here, but this is where he lives now. And so I'm hoping one of these days I can run across him and perhaps get an interview and talk to him about his kashihon days and some of his Western works. So I've gotten a bunch of Kawasaki Naboro stuff, including this. This is a catalog of a comics art retrospective of the man. There's some really good stuff in here. I'm not really going to do full flip throughs in this particular video, but I just want you to know there's a lot more Western stuff than I expected. So, very excited. I'm going to use the word very excited many times because the stuff that he has let me have, amazing. Okay, this is Fukidamari. And it's from, okay, I'm going to have to put the glasses on now. Y'all are making me do it, aren't you? Aren't you now? Pocket Comics, 1976. And it's got 3 stories in here. Um, one is like a badass boxer dude getting his eye punched out. It's not really a boxing comic. It's more like a hard-boiled, not really crime either. Just you know, badasses, mechanics making their way. And then you have the death of a Ronin, and which is looks like an interesting story. You've got the Ronin and a little girl, different kind of lone wolf and cub, I suppose. And then you have Professor Devil, or Demonologist, I guess, which is, I didn't know that he'd done any horror, so it's a horror thing. So, okay, I'm just gonna just be taking them out and then putting them back on this shelf. And I know, because this is out of the blue, that I'm not going to have a lot of viewers in real time. But you know what? That's life. You know, I want to get this done. And the fact is, I only have 2 days before I have to get on an airplane and go to the States for a couple weeks because my mom is sick. And so, you know, I want to get this out of the way. I don't want to leave this undone. I've been trying to get this done for 2 weeks now, and it's getting on my nerves. So this next set, these are all Furoku, you know, like the freebies that come with comics. And there's basically two sets. There's Jungle King, which is not really about the jungle. It's more about like jungle warfare, like, you know, it's more of like a war or a spy kind of thing. But I really love that profile. Love that face. I'm stealing it. I'm stealing that face. I am stealing it. And then this is all the same series. This is so this is Jungle. This one was Jungle King, and from Shonen Book. And these are Showa 40. So that's what? Plus 25. 1965. 1965. You got those. These also around the same era. Also Shonen Book. The print is so darn tiny, man. Yeah, also 1965. That same era. So these are all split up into stories, like several chapters of different stories. I don't even have one complete story, but there's a lot of stuff in here that I can't wait to look at. So it's a Western, okay? It's a boy of the plains, of the great wide plains, you know? And you have all the Western tropes, these great tropes. The guy really, I didn't, you know, like I knew about Isamu, but when I ran across his work in the Western kashihon that I did the video on, I was like, oh, he does Westerns too. But he knows all the tropes, you know, except this is one I'm not familiar with. Do you know this trope? Gunslinger versus Conan the Barbarian? No? Yeah, I don't know this one either. I mean, that is not what you'd call your typical Native American garb, so curiosity will rule the day. So these are great. This is something curious. Monkey Punch and Matsumoto Leiji, they both sometimes, a lot of different artists do this. They put English sound effects, but they don't design the sound effects like American comics. They just write them in English. But definitely, like, it's not the same. I mean, definitely you can tell it's inspired by, but not authentic, you know, American comic book sound effects. I mean, these are great. I'm gonna study the crap out of these, you know. Mama put these guns in the ground. I can't use them anymore. Okay, this is not the channel for that. This is the cover that I love. This is a cover I want to make into a poster and hang it on the only place I have space on the wall here that doesn't, it's not filled with book bookshelves. I mean, that's just great. I mean, some of the best, just that diagonal. It's very, dynamic and, it's not as clear, like black line cartoon. It's more, a little bit more painterly. So loving that. Then we have the full cast of characters. So this is, like as a kid, I did not like westerns. I wanted robots. I wanted rockets. I wanted aliens. And so Lone Ranger I would watch because it was on. I'd watch the Cisco Kid because he was so damn cool. Uh, but westerns weren't really my thing. Okay, let's move on. Sun Comics. Shi no Toride. This is Fortress of Death. And yeah, another western. So very cool. What year are we talking about here? So he did westerns we're talking like late 50s, right? Late 50s and this is 1967. So through the 60s, through the 70s. So, he probably did more westerns than, as far as I know, than any other manga artist. That's very possible, I mean, it depends. If you Galaxy Express 999 is a space western, basically. That's a space western. Let me get the angles right. There we go. So. All right, so that was Kawasaki Naboro. Now we have Saito Takao. This is, what is this? Kanji so stylistic. This is Buge Kiko, I think, or Kigyo, or something like that. Anyway, samurai stuff. This is a three-parter. Let's take a look at these covers. There's a second one and the third one. So, yeah. Every time I look at early Saito Takao, I see John Severin, and he doesn't really mention any American comics influences. So it might just have been, a case of parallel evolution, but like just the eyes, the eyebrows, John Severin, who I discovered through Cracked magazine. I liked Mad, but I was more of a Cracked fan. Most Cracked fans will not admit to it because, Mad is considered like the gold standard. And Cracked was kind of like the poor stepchild, the redheaded stepchild. But I preferred John Severin to Mort Drucker because John Severin was a clean style artist. So they weren't really caricatures like Mort Drucker, who was a master of the caricature. They looked a lot more closer to the actual features and proportions of the characters. Okay, let's move on. Reiji, Matsumoto Reiji, Denko Ozma. This is Mushy Comics. From when? 46, that's 1971. And this is a first printing. It's beat up, but I'm always happy to add to my Gaijinguy collection. One of these days, I'm going to go through it with y'all. I hope y'all enjoy that. Okay, now this, for me, this is a pleasure. This is another Furoku, all right? This is Tetsujin Taiga 7, okay? So it's Tetsujin, so like Iron Man, right? So it's like Tetsujin Nijuhachigo, you've got that going. It's Tiger, so you've got Tiger Mask, you've got that going. And it's 7, so you have Ultra 7, you've got that going. And then it's by Kazumine Daiji, who did some other tokusatsu adaptations. Like he continued from Kuwata Jiro. When Kuwata Jiro was doing Ultra 7, he did the rest of the series. He took over from Kuwata Jiro. And it's by Gensaku. So the original is Ushio Soji, who we've mentioned before, talented manga artist, contemporary of Tezuka, and went on to become a tokusatsu director. You know, like his stuff was not as popular as like the Kamen Riders and the Ultra series, but still a lot of great stuff. Spectreman, I think, was him. Anything with a cat as a head, it's him. Okay, so Ushio Soji, and then this guy is kind of cute. You know, I wonder if he talked like Tigger. Hoo-hoo! No, I can't do it. Guys, don't make me do that. You're asking way too much for me, like pushing me to do those, to do the Tigger impression. Okay, what do we got next? We have a kashihon coverless. This is by Namba Kenji. And Namba Kenji is a guy who I've talked about before because he's shown up in a lot of kashihon. Let's see. So this is by like Namba Kenji Production. Everybody had their own little production company. This is called Doronuma, and it's number 9 in the series of the guy named Jump Shishiko. I don't really know how to read that, but it's one long story. It's like the 9th in the series. This is a kashihon that has been rented out. You got a whole bunch of renters and such. 1965, it says. This is a Hibari book. Even, you know, it's a Hibari book because it lists, you know, Hibari, and then it has all these authors. You can see Umezu Kazuo on that list. You've got, look at this, Koga Shinsaku. So before he changed his name to Koga Shinji, he was Koga Shinsaku. You know, you've got all these. Kojima Goseki, of course, you know, the big names, right? That Hibari depended on. Now, this is what's interesting to me. The address for Hibari is in Kodaira, all right? And Kodaira. And then the address for Namba Kenji is that same address, but it's called, the apartment is called Kurihara Gaijin House. That's what it says right there, Kurihara Gaijin House. And so I wonder if that's not worth researching, the Kurihara Gaijin House. I wonder if he, you know, what his relationship with, hold on, I'm going to pour me a little more off camera, you know, just in case of, I don't know. Green label, buddies, green label. So, yeah, so that's interesting. This is looks like a hard-boiled kind of adventure. I call everything hard-boiled. I mean adventure. It's like an action-adventure type of deal. It's really hard to put these comics back without smacking into the camera. Maybe I should move this up and focus down a little bit. Maybe that's better. Then I won't keep bumping into it. All right, this next one I was so excited about because I've almost ordered these online. Shirato Sanpei's Shiton Dobutsuki. Okay, Seaton was a guy who studied animals, wrote a bunch of like monographs about animals. It was published and it was translated. And the guy who translated it, he also wrote stories in the first couple issues of Garo. So obviously, you know, Shirato was a big fan. And these are Shirato's adaptations of some of the stories, including these won an award. By the way, this Grizzly story won an award. He won an award for this and Sasuke for his work on those two in the same year. So what was I going to say? Excited, right? To have these. His, you know, these are animal stories, but they talk. They talk, so you know what they're thinking. You know what they're saying. So really looking forward to reading those. Okay, here's the next exciting thing. Look at this. I can't wait to show this to my kids in manga history class. The original, not the original, you know what I mean, Shin Takarajima. The original version that, reprint of the original version, along with booklet, that, you know, still credits Sakai Shima as being the guy who wrote the story and did the layouts. So, you know, you wouldn't have, like, Tezuka wouldn't have been a hit at the same time. He eventually would have took the world by storm, I've no doubt, you know. But Shichima was, you know, was a mentor. You know, he was a leader because, you know, Tezuka was still a medical student, and he was part of like a Let's Draw Manga Club and this kind of thing. And they worked together. But later on, when this was reprinted, you know, Tezuka kind of made it more his own thing, is a good way to say it, politic way to say it, and kind of you don't see the Shichima name anymore. And so he actually changed the kanji for Takara here, used the more simplified kanji so that, you know, it's a different thing. You know what I mean? You know how these things are. If you know anything about Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and Will Eisner and all these guys, they're, you know, it's not enough just to be a creator. You want to be recognized for what you did, and some people want to be recognized even more, and they will, you know, exert influence to get what they want. Here's a thing that came with. It looked like it came with maybe a magazine, like a science education magazine. This is like a children's book kind of deal, science focused. So that's cool. Okay, this is Shogakukan, written the old kanji way. Shogakukan, and I'm gonna open this up. Unboxing. There's two in here. And let's see. So these are both from Ninensei, Shogaku Ninensei. So these educational comics have like a longer history than the weeklies. You know, these are still being published, this kind of thing, you know? And so I would have thought that they were actually older than many of the weeklies and monthlies that we have, but they are, because this is from, and oh boy, I wonder where this was made. Oh really, was it made in Japan? Never would have guessed. Look, the whole thing is in katakana, man. Katakana. You know how hard it is to read? Have you guys, if you've been to Japan and you've ever been to a lotteria, a fast food joint, their whole menu was in katakana like this, and you don't know, should I read it this way or this way? It's just the spacing was really just badly designed and everything. I gotta find a date on this. Showa Jusannen, so that's 1938. 1938. And gorgeous action art and thoughts and prayers, folks. Thoughts and prayers. But you know what this had? Okay, this had something curious that I wanted to mention besides, you know, Napoleon. Was it this one or was it the other one? There was, okay. There it is. Mussolini and Friends. Mussolini and Friends. Okay. Just to let you know. Just to let you know. This other one has, the sound's a little thicker. It's also from the same year, 1938. It's got, you know, like traditional stories, some traditional stories and stuff. It's not, the paper is rougher. It's not as nice paper, and there's a lot less Mussolini for some reason. I don't know, times, tastes change. I just mentioned on somebody's Instagram that they had posted something about an old magazine they had, and I noticed in the contents it said something like a letter from Mussolini, and so I pointed that out. Okay, let's get into some cool stuff. All right, I don't know this person, but obviously he's got like a Takano Yoshiteru vibe, that face design, which we will see in a little bit. Um, but this is a Furoku from Showa Sanju, so we're talking 1955. What magazine? Boken O. Okay, so Adventure King is the name of that magazine. It's a kendo. Oh, the action in this is superb. Superb, you know? Like you think in 1955, when we look at a lot of the kashihon from the 50s, we think, oh, a lot of these manga artists are just starting out. They don't really have the artistic chops yet. But this guy could do action, you know? This guy could do action. You know, we look at 1960s Kirby as like he's the one who kind of he got action on the page. But this guy's got it going right here. So great. Nice to have that. Let's see. Maboroshi Taro. Now see, I don't know this creator. This is another Boken O, Adventure King. But this art reminds me of the guy who is doing the Ukon Sakon, or is it Sakon Ukon? I don't remember. That was in the Shonen Sunday, the very first one there. So it kind of reminds me of that, but this was not the guy's name. It just has a similar vibe, though a little bit more polished than that guy, but still very similar, the face in there. But as we know, like all early Japanese manga artists drew completely differently, right? No. I'm being facetious. Little bit. It's, you know, I'm having a little bit of fun here. Because I'm so frustrated with not being able to edit this video the way I wanted to, but that's okay. This is new. This is fun. We can do this. Okay, so this is Dageki no Ganchan. Dageki hit. Ganchan, I guess is his name. The Cancer Kid. No, that's not the Gon I'm talking about. Gon. This is Showa 36. So Showa 1961. 1961. And this is the guy, right? This is Kaizuka, right? Yes, Kaizuka Hiroshi. So this is the same guy who I just introduced doing another baseball comic in the very first issue of Jump. So this guy had baseball on the brain. On the brain. Okay, here's a nice one. Look at this. Sarutobi Sasuke. So we know it doesn't look like a ninja story, but this is a ninja story, obviously, with this name. Sarutobi Sasuke is like one of the famous ninja names. I've written down it's 1951. So this is Shonen Gahosha. Shonen Gaho was the magazine. You know what? I cannot afford it, but someday I would love to get the Shonen Gaho Batman and Superman. They'd redrawn all the comics, and but they still, it looked exactly like the original artists, you know, like Kurt Swan and those guys that were doing Superman and such. But anyway, but like if you look at this, like I really like the design, almost Archie comic, early Archie comics kind of eyes, and but very solid. I mean, it's very consistently good throughout the whole book. You know, I mean the guy's art. You know, like these guys that were doing the early monthly mags, they had it going on. You know, and we don't hear about that. We don't know about that. We know Tezuka, and but we didn't know that these other guys were doing it right. Okay, here we go. Oh boy, I think you guys are gonna like this stuff. Just by look at the face, and you can recognize this guy. He did this face, and there's not many people that did a face just like him. And we're talking about Kuwata Jiro. So this is Maboroshi Jo, so castle Like Maboroshi is not, it's not like a mirage, but it's like a vision. It's like something amazing, something spectacular, fantastic. There we go. It's like fantastic castle, or castle of fantasy, something like that. Um, this is from Shonen Club. Print is again really small. 1972. 1972. 1972. Yeah. So Kuwata Jiro. So his style is he's pretty solid from the get go. But you have the typical side, you know, sidekick face, the kind of sillier face, and then you have the face that he uses for like his heroes. They tend to be quite similar, and of course you have like bad guys in. Oh, did I? You know what? I might have. There's something that I wanted to show you that I missed, and I think it's in the baseball one. I think it's in the baseball one. I totally wanted to show you something. Oh yeah. So in this Ganbari Kanchan, okay, at the end, look at who the team he has to fight. The Fukumen team. Fukumen meeting masked. Right? You know? Masked. Masked team. That's crazy. That's crazy. But I was talking about this. Somebody was talking about problematic imagery, like why is there so much clan imagery in Japanese comics? It's not really necessarily clan imagery. It was those hooded characters were used in pulp magazines throughout 30s, 40s, 50s, and they still love these hooded bad guys. I just had a comment. Yeah, thank you so much for checking out the channel. I've been doing this for a little while. It's been a couple months since I started. Here's another one. This is Uchu Kaijin. Okay, Uchu Kaijin means, of course, like strange, bizarre, weird person. In other words, stranger from space, you know. And this is from Omoshiro Book. And this is, when is this? 31, that means 1956. 1956. Uchu Kaijin. And Kuwata Jiro, again, Kuwata Jiro. I have a couple more Kuwatas to show you guys. And I really like this style, this Kuwata style. And not just because that guy looks like Popeye, but like just this this gorgeous hair, you know, it's a little bit different than later Kuwata that we might be used to. A little bit different. So we're not quite to the 1966 Batman, but we do have guys that remind me of Batman. So more guys in hoods. So that's pretty cool. Was there something that I wanted to show in this? Nope, just guys in hoods. That's what I wanted to show. Okay, and then we have Champion of the Storm, Arashi no Champion. All right, another Kuwata Jiro. Kuwata Jiro. And then we have a Batman-looking guy. Topless Batman. That's what I call him. Topless Batman. And so you have this pink printing, and you would think, because I've seen stuff printed in the 80s that in purple ink, and maybe it was the paper, but it's barely readable because all the ink has swapped back and forth. But you know what I love? Look at this. I love this green ink. That is gorgeous. It's gorge. It's gorge. This green ink. And again, you have just the weirdest bad guys. So Kuwata was all about superheroes. You know, superheroes and supervillains. And here, this is, oh my gosh, this is a treasure. Look at this, guys. Okay, so this is Kamen no Kaito, the masked robber, the masked burglar robber. Um, and it's an akahon. You can tell it's only 20 yen. And the fact that it has the price printed on it means it's not a, one of these furoku. It's not one of these furoku. But this one is probably made from, it says gold manga. So it's obviously like they really, in this there's like 16 different comics that they printed. So this was maybe a little bit more than a fly-by-night place. They really look like they tried to, get their stuff right. Printing's pretty good for this really small thing. It's beautiful. And guess who this is by? J.K. Jiro Kuwata. Look at that. Jiro Kuwata. It's like proto Kuwata. It's very, very Tezuka-like. And guess who you've got? You got Hood, guys. Luckily, you can tell them apart because they all have letters on their, because otherwise they'd all look alike and you would know who you were talking to, So you'd be like, hey, Q. What is it, M? Oh, thank you. Mr. Fujita, I have to say again, thank you so much. I think you're making my day, and I think you're making everyone else's day here. And there's so much here, like I don't even know where to start. But I definitely want to start adding a different set of videos to the channel, which is reviews, right? Because I haven't done reviews. I write reviews, but I haven't really done any review videos. But I should. All right, here we go. Okay, guess who's next? Rocket Man. Rocket Man. So this is Rocket Man. Don't make me sing it, because I will do it. Mizuki Shigeru. Rocket Man. This is his debut. Okay? Completely original. Characters in this. Okay, first of all, that is Takano Yoshiteru's character design. 100%. 100%. I read in one of these kashihon manga history fan-made magazines. It's, I consider it more than a fanzine because I think they're pretty serious about the history in it, So, it's nice publication, really. But there was an interview with him that they had posted in there. I love the color in these kashihon things. This is a replica, of course. It's not the original, because the original is like a lot. But this thick paper, and the cover. This is Ugetsu Shobo. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and I like having, like I had the reprints. It's like the first Mizuki that I owned besides the Hakaba no Kitaro. But, it's got his own special sense of humor, his own special world, his own special take on stuff. And yes, he does borrow a lot. And, I'm not going to get too much into it this time. I do talk about it in another video. But again, this one has a lot of Takano Yoshiteru. It's got swipes from Mystery in Space. And of course, Rocket Man with an S. So, at least, I don't know. Not really consistent with the design or the coloring. But you know what? It might be Kryptonese. So, there's that. Okay, which he followed up with the also completely original Plastic Man. So, okay, enough ragging on the man. He did what he had to do to make a living, feed his family. All right, look at this. Box set of Yokidan 1 and 2. Okay, comes with a pamphlet, and look at these replicas of the first appearance of Hakaba no Kitaro. You know, the first manga Kitaro, not kashihon. I mean, not kamishibai, but manga, the kashihon manga rental comic version of Kitaro. And this is the first one, and you could see, you know, you can see the swipes. They're pretty clear, but I mean, I just love kashihon color, and the way he combined the color with the hatching, and the swipes, and then his own original stuff. It all, you know, it comes together as this very surreal, very bizarre thing, which infused with his particular sense of wackiness and drama. But what I like about having these instead of just like the reprints is this includes like the other stories that were in the original. So, you know, not just the Mizuki Kitaro stuff, but the other stories, of which there are a few. So that's something we should talk about in the future. Right? Isn't that something I'd like to see? Because regardless, I'd like to do it. And so I gonna, as we say. All right, what we got next here? Okay. We're more than halfway done, you guys. Kitaro Yawa. Now this, it doesn't say, but this has to be a reprint because, of course, it's pristine. It's, again, beautiful reprint. It's got those thick pages. It's got that. This is a little bit later than, you know, the one we just looked at. It's still like Kitaro is coming into his own, you know. Not quite the cutie that we're used to, you know. A little bit different, you know. He's always got that one closed eye that we can see, instead of it being, you know. And so, you know, he got that longer hair. Get a haircut, hippie. So, Yawa Kitaro, and I love that cover. Let me tell you, I just love it. It's, you can't really tell what's going on, but you have little Medama Oyaji running down the stairs. Okay, here's another 3 kashihon reprints. Now I had a different reprint, but this has the reprints as they were originally made. I mean, it has like an obi here, so it has, like, you know, explanations. If you take off the obi, it's going to be just like the original, the Home Run Bunko books. And guess what? Guess who you got? You got your hooded guys. You got your hooded guys. And then you have the King in Yellow. Not really, but Akuma-kun, the kashihon version. So great to have these in context. When I was collecting and reading comics, I was reading more than collecting, you know, because I didn't have a lot of money. I still don't have a lot of money, to tell you the truth. Reading is the main thing. And researching is now, you know, lots of fun. But before I did research, that context wasn't that important to me. Like, I didn't read comics in the weeklies. I waited till they were collected for a couple reasons, okay? First of all, I want a story to finish. Like, I want to know that it's going to end, because, like, when I started Urasawa Naoki's Billy Bat, I thought that sucker was never going to end. And so, you know, I quit it until it finished. And then I went back in, and then I did a whole research thing on it. So hopefully I'll publish that later. Okay, this is a Furoku. It's published as Shonen Golden Comics. Now, if you remember Shonen, I featured that when we talked about Atomu's first appearance. So Atomu, Sasuke, Tetsujin, Nijuhachigo, you know, Gigantor, all from Shonen magazine, and Shonen lasted for I think a little while after the weekly started showing up, but this was like the main monthly for a while. I think this and Shonen Gaho and Manga Shonen were the rivals. But this is a war comic, a weird war comic, and that's what I think is awesome. So this is Mizuki Shigeru, Weird War. It's a ghost ship captain. So it's like and I'll be honest, I never really liked military stuff, but like when I was buying back issues of comics back in the day, I got the weird war ones, like Unknown Soldier and and that kind of stuff I thought was cool. All right, we still have a little more Mizuki to go. All right, and we have some interesting stuff. Gege no Kitaro, the Kodansha, which this is 43, so 1968. 10 years from his first appearance as Hakaba no Kitaro. The Mizuki type character has changed quite a bit. This is a very well-known cover that I think originally was based on a design that was on one of those kashihon covers. You don't have the origin of Kitaro in the first book. I think he didn't do that till later. Kind of redrew parts of it. But wow, really glad to have this because I have a couple of different Gege no Kitaro, and there's just so many printings that I want to make a guide because I need to know myself, like how many, like there's so many versions. Like if you want the whole story, like what do you read? So if anybody wants to help me with that, bring it on. Okay, so this is Nihon Kijinden. So Japanese weirdo legends, or like strange people legends. But this is the character that we see in Garo, like the first few issues of Garo. We have this guy, and I believe he's a ninja. But in this, no, he's just a farmer guy. But in some of the later stories, he's a ninja. And then Rat Boy, or Rat Man, I don't know, Nezumi Otoko, Rat Boy, shows up in these as well, just like in the Garo. I don't know if these are reprints of the Garo, but definitely fit into the same, like it's got that Garo feel, not for the younger readers necessarily, but not adult either. If you want to talk adult, we have Island of the Shit Gods. Oh boy. So for our manga Taro fans, this is Mizuki Shigeru putting poop on the cover, which might have been a ballsy move, but maybe he would have regretted it and say, no, don't print that. He's kind of running after. I just realized that I'm accidentally doing Mizuki cosplay. So let me show you this like almost Drucker-like design and almost Monkey Punch like line work. I love it. I love it. So these are all short stories, and they were from Action Comics, which means that was a seinen magazine, and so this is a little bit more adult oriented. You have some yokai stories in here, and just you got some sex, a little bit of sex. If y'all want to know what Mizuki sex is like, check it out. So, okay, we're reaching the end of the Mizuki stuff, and this is the end of the stuff that I was given by Mr. Fujita. And again, I'm grateful. I hope you guys are grateful because I'm going to share all this stuff with you. This is Yotsuya Kaidan. This is by Gakken, and Gakken is like this educational publisher. So it's part of a series. It says like Japanese Weird Tales number 10, and it's got this one samurai story, but it's Yotsuya Kaidan, which is one of the most famous ghost stories in Japan. And It's actually one of the, like, I had a book of legends, tales, ghost stories, this kind of thing that I got when I was in high school. And, but this is a story that I ran across when I was 15 years old. I was visiting New York. My biological dad worked in a bar as a bartender and as a extra in movies, and he was writing, and he was on some soap operas once in a while. Uh, One of his regulars, who is also part-time actor, that guy's cousin was a manager, this is long, at the Metropolitan Opera, and the Japanese kabuki was in town in New York. And I was into Japan, it was kind of well known. Uh, and so he said, well, my cousin works there, so I can get you tickets. And I was like, what? Because there's no way 15 years old I could afford to go to the kabuki, at the New York Met. So I was like, yes. And so I got tickets. I watched it from the manager's box. I got to go backstage. Well, I got to go on the stage. Let's put it that way. They had all the props out there. And so whenever you see like kabuki, like the most famous image, the guy with like the spider things coming out of his head and the temple on top, and the huge daikatana that the guy wields. I held that thing in my own grubby little hands. The guy goes, here, here, check it out. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. Can I? Is it okay? So I had a camera, a nice camera that I borrowed from my dad. And I took tons of pictures, and none of them came out. Oh my God. So everything's just here. That's all I got. But because I had this nice camera, the stagehand, Japanese guy, didn't speak a lick of English, was basically like, do you want to meet the actors? And I was like, no, I'm not worthy. He's like, you're cameraman, right? So come, why don't you? And I'm like, no, no, just a kid with a camera. He's like, kid cameraman. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't think I should. So, what a wuss. Man, I could have met Ichikawa Danjiro the 12th, who was, the head of the big Kabuki family. That's the year that he got his title, Ichikawa Danjiro the 12th. I met his son, Ebizo. I met his son when he was still dating Sato Eri, who did Cutie Honey. She was in the Cutie Honey movie, and I was a big fan of her, so I was excited to meet her. I met her like maybe twice because we were in a club together called the Celebrity Curry Club, and though I was not a celebrity, I worked for K1 with athletes, and I kind of wormed my way in through there, and so I got to eat curry made by different famous people, and got to meet some people who I'd only seen on TV. That was pretty cool. I think one of the things that impressed me about my wife when I was dating her is that I took her to one of these parties and she met all these people that she'd only seen on TV, and she was like, huh. I mean, she was not starstruck at all. She was like, interesting. Yeah. And I thought, this girl has it going on. Like, she's a lot younger than me, but she's got herself, and so 10 years, been 10 years. All right. So I have just this last leg of stuff. Let's go through this and I'll let you go. I promise. So, from Bubbles, Bat Kid by Inoue Kazuo, Battokun. And it's basically like about 3/4 is the comic and some like puzzle pages and some extra material, and then a fourth of it is an essay by Ryan Holmberg. It's translated by Ryan Holmberg, and let me tell you, like I told you a couple times, I'm not a sports manga guy, but I have read sports manga. Like Rokude Nashi Blues is a fighting comic, but at the same time it's a boxing comic, and that's the first one that I've read like from beginning to end. First like sports comic that I read from beginning to end. But this was such a pleasure to read. it was, I went, I enjoyed, I just felt really light, and it was just, it's not heavy drama, but a kid is super positive, and he has a goal. There's obstacles, and he's like, all right, I'll just go, I'll do what it takes. I'll go around that. Uh, Art solid, very consistent. You know what? Rookies. I did start reading Rookies. I started reading Rookies, and I realized it wasn't Rokudenashi Blues. Rookies did not make me laugh. Like, it did not make me pee myself. Like, I'm responding to a comment. It did not make me pee myself like the early books of Rokudenashi Blues did. That's why, that's like the only scanlation, except it wasn't scanlation because there wasn't an internet. I Xerox copied and wrote my translations in and made copies for the anime club that I was in. And I don't know whatever happened to those copies. I have no idea. But I just wanted somebody to see, like, this comic's never going to be. There was like 3 or 4 titles translated into English at the time, and they were all ninja and science fiction. So, never would have guessed that that would someday be translated into another language. But so, I mean, oh geez, there's this one scene. I don't want to give anything away, but there's this one scene in Rokudenashi Blues where, like, there's 2 factions within the school, and they're at each other's throats, and there's about to be this big war. It's gonna tear the school apart. The new guy, first year, badass boxer, is he acts like he's a dumb, like dumber than a sack of rocks, but he actually is like doing what it takes to bring the whole schools together, and that's like really awesome. But when this big, conflict's about to happen, one of the leaders is stuck in the toilet because there's no toilet paper in the toilet. So he's in the toilet giving orders. And then when you finish that whole, like, the main thrust of the thing, he's like, oh, it's not working out like I thought it would. And he looks up, and there's 2 rolls of toilet paper right at the top of the stall. And I was like, oh man, I lost my shit. Oh, that was hilarious. This is great. I enjoy this. Like when, as a kid, how I enjoyed Archie. Like now it's harder to, like I still have fun with Archie once in a while. I like that kind of innocence, taking back to a more innocent time. But this was just really a nice, read. Very. Now, this is F by Imai Arata. This is something that Ryan Holmberg translated, and he's written an essay about it, and he brought to fruition. It was like originally printed as part of an art project, and so it wasn't like traditionally published. So I knew there's no way I'm going to get the Japanese version unless they go back and do a Japanese version of this, maybe English printed version. So I was very excited and very grateful to Koenji Shawn Reviews, Shawn, for picking up this copy for me in Tokyo and sending it to me. Very grateful. Just like I'm very grateful to Bubbles for Bat Kid. So thank you so much, Shawn. But I'm about halfway through, and I've had to put it down just because I've had so much work to do, and I have not read a lick of stuff in the last couple days. But wow, I mean, just this shows you the power of comics, like what comics can do. And not all Japanese comics have to be these perfect, pristine, photorealistic backgrounds with, fine lines and toned everything. They don't have to be, and they shouldn't be. That shouldn't be the only kind of comics that are being made. So I actually want to show this to the manga history students just to show them what's possible, you know. So anyway, if you want to tell an honest story, you know, you don't have to be a beautiful artist, but it helps. And if you're Kaneko Atsushi, you are an amazing artist. So I found these at I don't one of the used bookstores. I want to say it was Book Off, but it's these stickers are not Book Off stickers. So I found these. I saw these a long time ago, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I never really paid attention to this artist until Koenji Shawn Reviews Discord and meeting a bunch of you guys online and you guys raving about this guy, and I started reading Deathco, and I was like, oh my god, I love this guy. So picked it up. I'm glad to have some physical stuff because I only have digital stuff of his, so I'm glad to have physical stuff. I ordered this Yokai Ningen Ben because I'm writing an article for my fanzine, manga, not mangazine, Mangaverse, which I'd like to get some more letters of comment. So if you guys are interested, you know, let me know. It's free download, and you know, letters of comment are just you write me a message and say that was fill in the blank. I really like the article, blah, 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 because blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is another thing I came across on a Discord. I don't remember which Discord. It might have been Koenji Shawn, might have been the Bunko, the French one, that I met so many great people on. I saw this, or it might have just been Instagram. I don't know, but somebody posted this, and I went, what is that? And I have to have it, and I ordered this. I ordered this online. I had to have it. I knew right away. I have no idea what it's about. And just looking on the inside, I'm like, oh my. But just the cover, the pulpy kind of feel, I just like. And this art style, I was like, yep, I want it. I want it. And it's mine. Here's something else I ordered online. This is a Tsuge Yoshiharu collection, like special collection, special issue of Garo. And what I was reading about, because I myself have not read that much of him, I've collected so that when I'm ready, I can jump in and talk about him and, you know, learn about him. This year for manga history, I'm going to make sure that I want to introduce him, so I want a little bit more solid foundation. And I was looking online, and this one article said you can't go wrong with this because it's got all his major all his major stuff, you know, like Nejishiki and the Swamp, you know, Numa, and Red Flower, Akaihana, you know. So, and at this size, you know, and it was cheap. So, you know, a no-brainer. So I wanted that. And this, my friend, old neighbor and good friend, good drinking buddy from Tokyo, Mr. CB. He sometimes has extras of stuff. And he has a whole bunch of Archie comics that he had extras of, and he sent, and I gave to my daughter, and she enjoyed those. And he also sent me this awesome omnibus of Nocturnals, who he knows I love. I love Dan Brereton. In fact, I think he's the one actually that turned me on to Dan Brereton in the first place. It's all this painted stuff. I know it's not manga. I know. Hush. But it's beautiful. And it's something that I got. Okay? So there. And it's gorgeous. And I love it. All right? Not everyone understands my love. Okay. Here's another thing. All right? I know. We're getting there. I promise. We're almost there. I've been driving 2.5 hours all the way up to the tippy top of Kyushu to visit the Kita-Kyushu Manga Museum and the Mandarake, which is in the same building. Okay, I went all the way up there for that. And I don't even need these right now because I don't have that small print to worry about. Okay, so I went all the way up there for those. And then when we took a trip to Fukuoka a couple weeks ago, I was like, I was looking for used bookstores because everybody had their own. My wife had her things she wanted to get. My daughter wanted to go to one certain place, and I was like, I don't have. I just want to hit a used bookstore or something. And they have a mandarake since when? I didn't know that. So it's like a lot closer. And so I went there. My wife goes, you know, we have a lot to do today. You have 30 minutes. What? I went right to the rare comic section and I got 5 things. I got this, which I just by coincidence I picked this up, and right afterwards I saw that Koenji Shawn Reviews had picked it up as well. He'd actually looked inside it. I have not looked inside it yet, but I will. So just the fact that it's called shit instead of shito, like the fact that it's called shit chofu or shit, what is it? Shit chofu Mystery America. I was like, yeah. And it's got that same kind of art style that I just showed you in another one. It's got a similar kind of Garo feel to it, you know, the thick lines, very textured lines. Okay, I talk about this guy a lot. Takano Yoshiteru. I just showed you the Mizuki comic where he had definitely been influenced by the Yoshiteru character design. You know, this kind of deal. Another guy who I think looks like Takano Yoshiteru is Hori Taku. Horie Taku. That's the guy's name. But this is Jusango Hashin Seo. And this I've introduced to you guys in when we took a look at the very first issue of Shonen magazine. And I was like, oh, I'd like to get that. But I mean, I wasn't in a rush, and it was right there in front of me. This is the ge, in other words, the bottom or the part 2. I'm hoping I'll get the part 1 eventually. I wait for these things to happen till I come across them. I got this issue of Natsumang O, so this is basically like another zine like thing where they've reprinted a lot of stuff and they have a bunch of articles, and this particular one is about Kuri Ippei. Kuri Ippei is the younger brother of the guy who they started together, Tatsunoko Pro. So Gotcha Man, like Battle of the Planets, Speed Racer, Mahagogo, Kashan, the Time Bokan series, all those things. This, this guy was also involved, and those are the things that got me into Japanese animation in the first place. Was Speed Racer and Battle of the Planets, Gotcha Man, and so. Because I don't know Tatsunoko history that well, I thought this is a good thing for me to put aside and dive into when I'm ready to do that dig, because I want to trace because he has a very particular face design that several Tatsunoko artists seem to, emulate. And so I kind of wanted to trace him as one of the seminal influencers of comic style. So I'm glad to have that. I've had this Esper, Kosoko Esper, and we talked about this again in the first issue of Jump. This character was featured along the bottom of some stories, and there was an ad for a Panasonic thing, National. And this character is Matsumoto Reiji, created to be a mascot for what Panasonic used to be called National, and it's that a little bit earlier Leiji, for when he draws for boys, he has the big-eyed starry-eyed style that he also used in a way with the girl comics. What I didn't know I'm gonna make a video about this, I promise, down the road. When I studied him and I did my research on him, I always assumed that he had like this evolution, this straight line of evolution, where he did the the animals and the girl comics, and then did the boy comics and did the more mature stuff, and just kept evolving. He was drawing all these styles at the same time, and so it totally threw off my theory, how I saw the world, you know, and I realized they were all happening at the same time. So you know, I mean, when you say the guy's a genius, you know, that's why is he? That's one of the reasons he's a genius, is that he was able to have all these modes and all at the same time. Not everybody can do that. Okay, here's the prize that I got. Okay, remember who I mentioned? I said he was a talented manga artist and then went to become a talented tokusatsu director. Ushio Soji. And I've shown this, I've introduced this to you guys uh, somewhere, one of the videos somehow. And you know what? I was so glad because I tried to order this actually, and then there it was out. I couldn't find any copies for sale. But even though the printing is not great, the art is just, this guy really had it going on, you know? It's, I dare say, it's almost like Little Nemo, Winsor McKay quality, where it's just a very tight, detailed line with these beautiful, complex, different angled, perfectly proportioned backgrounds. Uh, you know, just artistry. The artistry is so amazing. And this is Chocho. Boy, I can never remember how to pronounce that. Chocho Kokyo. No, Chocho Kokyo Kyoku. Butterfly Symphony by Ushio Soji. And man, I'm so excited to have this. I think it's gorgeous. I can't wait to show these to the kids. I think they're gonna love it. So this was the last thing that I'm showing you guys. And thank you for joining me. Man, I'm so glad to get this out of my system, you know, and get this out there. You know, this, you know, I wanted to edit it, but this is one way, right? You guys don't hate it, do you? Let me know. Let me know in the comments what you think. So maybe sometimes it's okay to go a little bit rough, do a little bit guerrilla stuff. I'm just going to try different formats because for me it's most important to get the stuff out. It doesn't always have to be as pretty as I want it to be. But I still, you know, I like to maintain a certain level of quality. But as long as you guys are having a good time, I know I'm having a good time. But let's tell you what, let's take this off and take one quick look at the whole shebang that we looked at today. And thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys in the funny pages. Peace out.